Welcome to the Holistic Glow podcast. I'm happy to have you back here with another episode. And today I want to talk about something very significant. And it's about the idea of struggling with lack versus drowning in quote unquote abundance. And I'll explain what this means, but I want to start with how this came to life, specifically on today's episode, why I want to talk about this. And it all started when I stumbled upon a video about decluttering. And after that, there was a lot of videos that came after that, YouTube suggestions. And then I looked at some of the comments, and pretty much people are talking about how much of a struggle it's been to keep up with their houses, and not just decluttering, but also cleaning and organizing and just keeping up with life. And I see a lot of videos, especially with quote unquote busy moms and trying to keep up with their whole house and chores and managing the family. And this is all in a quote unquote first world country where people are actually distressed and unhappy and feel like they're stuck and they have no way out. They feel overwhelmed with life. It's just hard to handle. And it made me think of the problems that a quote unquote a third world country has, which is usually, lack of pretty much the essentials, lack of, you name it, right? So now I'm talking about real problems here. People are actually expressing that they're having a hard time living life because of, clutter, for example, right? So it's something that's been sitting heavy on my heart, and today happens to be the day that I talk about it and that I share it with you, and hopefully it will, make you think and reflect and relate and do something about it, because this is on one hand something that I've actually lived, because I've lived in both countries, right? What people call first world country versus third world country. So I know how it is when you live in these both types of environment. And so now I want to talk about the truth, right? Or rather my truth, but I think it's the truth because most people will relate to it, is that people do struggle with lack of materials, right? But maybe what people don't understand, especially people who struggle with lack of material, is that there are people who struggle with abundance of materials. And it's crazy to think, but yes, it is a problem, right? So this leads me to say that no matter where you are in this world, right, just because of where you are, it doesn't mean that your problems are going to go away. Like, there's still going to be problems. There's still going to be pain. It's just different kind of problems, right? So for example, I grew up in a place where problems were visible, right? It's right there in your face. You see that maybe there's not enough space in most people's home, right? Maybe they don't have a good quality home. They can't afford it, right? Maybe most people cannot afford, certain foods. Most people maybe don't have access to quality education or transportation, or they worry about their daily basic needs, right? And this is real struggle. These are real struggles, right? They create anxiety, frustration, and people want to change. People want to escape. People are in survival mode. So pretty much everyone dreams of more stability, more freedom, more opportunity, right? So they just start to believe like, oh, if I was in a better country, like everything will change, right? And then people move, right? So, like people like me end up moving to first world country. Well, I personally didn't move, but I happened to move, right? And I'll explain what that means another time. But still, I started living in a quote unquote first world country, and it's true, right? Things become available in a way that they were never before. Like people, once you move, then you have access to education, you have access to transportation, you have access to things that you've dreamed of. Like you could just buy a car, buy a house, whatever you need to do. However, there is a cost to it. Right? Let's say you have access to a car, job, better home, more food, more options, but something that came with it is something that people don't warn you about, is the stress and the pressure and the burnout and isolation and disconnection, right? So now the only difference is the struggle is more silent. It's not like visible, right? It's more like mental, emotional, and sometimes existential, right? So, and I felt this, right? I now see my life in a first world country where I feel like I just have too much to do. I have too much to do. I have too much to pay, too many distractions, too much debt, too much pressure to keep up and perform, because that's how it's set up. And there's just very little time to just be. In fact, just being is considered an offense. Like, no offense, but yeah. Like, if you just be, people don't get it. Like, what do you mean? Like, people want you to be doing something all the time. Like, the questions that people ask you is like, what are you going to do over this weekend? What are you going to do when you do this? What are you going to do after work? Like, it's all about doing and going and going and going and hustling and just performing or achieving or whatever. It's really never about being, right? So back home, right? People might be poor, but people have time. People are present. People are enjoying life. People who are in a first world country might not understand this, but poor people can have fun, okay? I'm not saying like being poor is a good thing, but I'm just saying you don't have to be rich to have fun, to enjoy life, because if you wait for that day to be rich, to have fun, to enjoy life, which is unfortunately the message that society wants to pass on, it's not the truth. I've seen people having the most fun and they don't have any penny. So I'm not glamorizing being poor or not having money, but I'm saying that they're just different things. You need money for survival. You need money to eat, to meet your basic needs and beyond, right? Sometimes there's luxury things that you would want. You have desires. You're a human being. It's completely fine and it's okay. However, being joyful and just living life, just being present, like enjoying your little coffee, those are the qualities of life that are missed by people who are in, most people, I'm not talking about every single body, most people in first world countries miss. So this brings me to the question that, are human beings just doomed to always struggle no matter what? Like, are we just gonna struggle anywhere we go in the world? Like, are we like looking for happiness in all the wrong places? Because no matter what, it seems like it's a struggle. So now I've come to believe that the core human pain is, can you guess? It's disconnection. So no matter where you are, right? If you're experiencing frustration, suffering, struggle, and so on, that's a sign that there's a disconnection somewhere. It's It could be from yourself, disconnection from, your purpose, your truth, disconnection from your community, and disconnection from your peace, right? From our peace. So, for example, when you're poor, you think that the solution is having more, right? That's just something that's just automatically embedded in us. Oh, if I had that, then I wouldn't suffer, right? And then when you have more, you realize that that was never the real problem. And people usually cannot comprehend this unless they experience it for themselves, right? Which is understandable because we're human beings again. So in the end, it's just the same pain. It's just the packaging is different. It's just different sides of the same coin. It's still painful, okay, to be tied up with debt and yet you have everything. That's the illusion, right? You have everything, but you're tied up with debt. Like you don't have any time to spend with your loved ones or family or whatever because everybody's busy anyway, trying to make it, right? Trying to maintain the stuff that they have acquired, right? And then there's the other side of life, the flip side of this, where people are in lack, right? They're craving these things like if I had the car, if I had the house, if I had this and that. But yet they have so much time in their hands where they could just be creative. They could just be as a human being or whatever. So it's just both of them are painful, right? And I'm saying this just to say that there's pain everywhere, right? Just because you achieve those things doesn't mean you're going to be happy. Now, I'm not saying that, people who have, lack of food, like basic needs, I can understand. That's just on another level. The pain and the struggle, that's inhumane for somebody to not have food at all or not have their basic needs met. What I'm really talking about here is people who, let's say, kind of have their basic needs met to some extent. However, they still don't have the house, they don't have the car, they don't have this, they don't have that, or whatever they think will improve their life or will make them happier, right? So I want to be clear that I am in nowhere comparing somebody who doesn't have food to eat, because having food to eat is a survival thing, and we're not talking about real survival needs. That's like a human need, right? So, but I'm talking about in terms of what people want in order to avoid pain and find solutions to their problems. Moving to a different country doesn't seem to solve the problem, right? Maybe to some extent, yeah. But like I said, the real problem here is if we had to, put it in like one word, it would be like, again, the disconnect that we have from ourselves or from what we think will bring us happiness or from what actually brings us happiness. So now we talked about having, pain no matter what, right? And like happiness is not about moving to different countries or different city, whatever. It's about coming home to yourself. That's the ultimate happiness. And now, are we doomed to just struggle with pain in this life? Well, that's more of like an invitation for us to maybe to stop chasing happiness externally, to stop living by society's like definition of success, to return to what's real. Because I've seen it now with my own eyes. Like you can be, I've seen people who are broke, but they're just so happy. They're so joyful. They enjoy life. They're free spirit. Or some people live a very minimal lifestyle and they're just the happiest human being on earth. Like they just have no regrets in life, right? I've also seen people who are rich and they're miserable. Okay? And they look like they have their stuff together, but really that's just an external image. They're not experiencing joy or happiness. So I've seen that you can have nothing and still laugh from your gut. And I've seen that you can have everything and feel empty. So the real question is, how can I live in alignment with my soul wherever I am, right? It's not a question of, oh, what should I get in order to be happy? Or where should I go in order to be happy? Where should I move in order to be happy? That's still chasing happiness outside of you, which again, like I said, no matter where you are, it's going to be different problems. Like the problems will change how they present themselves to you, but you're never going to avoid the problem. So if you ever felt like, you're stuck or that you're chasing something that's always out of reach, please, 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 I'm telling you to really sit down with yourself and actually think that if that's going to solve your problem. Maybe you're running away from yourself, right? Maybe happiness isn't about having more. Maybe it's about needing less, right? How about happiness is just in simplifying life, just living a simple life, just in being, just in breathing, right? So again, this is kind of like a reflection, right? And like I said, the differences between the first world country and third world country and living in both aspects, right? It's not about really where you are. It's really about who you are and how you live and how connected you are to yourself and to what you want to do in life and things like that. It's just deeper than that, right? That's what I'm saying. And yes, for sure, when you are living in a more developed country, there's going to be like access to things, opportunities, abundance, technology, mobility, but then it does come with like a very fast-paced living, endless bills, and I'm not lying about the endless bills, disconnection from community, like there's no sense of community, right? Loneliness is huge, burnout, right? So again, it comes with all these things, which again raises the question, right? Really, what is it worth having, right? Would you rather be surrounded with material things and not be happy and have those material things cause you stress as well? Because that's what people are experiencing, is really like they have a car of their dreams, but they cannot stop working even for 2 weeks because they have to maintain the payments. So things are based arranged around like debt, right? The system of having debt, and you literally pay for those things with your future time that you would rather spend with your kids, time that you would rather spend doing what you love, and so on. So it's like, yes, you have every material thing that you've dreamed of, but first of all, is that going to bring you happiness? And second of all, is it worth paying it with your future time? Right? It's like you have to work endlessly in order to maintain the things that you bought, including the house, the car, or the items or whatever. So just living a balanced life and knowing that happiness is not based on your circumstances, it's based on your intentions, right? Like, who are you beyond what you own or achieve? That's the biggest question. And can you find peace and simplicity? Because anyway, we're not going to go to heaven with all this stuff that we have if you believe in heaven. So the point of life is not acquiring things, right? And I'm telling you earlier, people are literally struggling with letting go of stuff, decluttering, or having too much stuff is actually causing them unhappiness because of the stuff they bought, thinking that it would make them happy. Like, look at this paradox, right? So, and we could talk a lot about this, but I think that understanding, right? Uh, that when we run away from ourselves and we try to numb our unhappiness by like shopping or substances or overworking, social media, distractions, these are the things that most people in first world countries suffer from because their happiness is stolen by the things that they thought would bring them happiness. So it's a never-ending cycle of disastrous, just struggle and survival mode, right? Never actually enjoying and living life. So again, I could talk about this all day, but I think that I'll leave it here, and I'll leave it up to you to just, reflect on your own. And if you ever thought that once I get there, once I have this, once I achieve that, then I'll be happy, please pause and really, really, really try to think where your happiness is, right? And know that you can be happy today in your just presence, in your being, right? As long as you start creating life that aligns with what actually matters to you and not what the world told you, then no matter where you are in the world, you're gonna feel free, whole, and fulfilled. You can create that life where you feel free, whole, and fulfilled. So I hope that this resonated with you. Feel free to share it or comment. And if you have a story, a realization that you had, feel free to share. And until next time, stay aligned and enjoy life. Thanks. Bye.